Hi, everyone. My name is Cadet Lauren Fairfax. I'm in Stafford, Virginia, sociology major. This minor has provided a great opportunity for me to continue studying issues sensitive as diversity and inclusion with my peers, and I'm very, very grateful for this program.
Hi, my name is Kelsey Frizzell. I'm currently in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and I'm also a sociology major. The Diversity and Inclusion Studies minor gave me an amazing opportunity to engage in important and critical discussions with other cadets and faculty to help further diversity at the Academy and in society.
Hello, everyone. I'm Cadet Melissa Gammons. I'm speaking to you today from Columbus, Ohio. I'm an American history major, and the Diversity and Inclusion Studies minor really added empathy and a context to the major that without it would have been very lacking.
Hi, my name is Cadet Traven Jackson. I'm a sociology major. What I appreciate most about the minor, I think, would be the fact that it has, enabled me, it has provided me the tools to be able to, take those discussions and those emotions and those feelings centered around diversity and intersectionality and taking those into places where those things normally wouldn't go. And so it enables us to do that both here and in the force. So that's what I appreciate most.
Hi, I'm Cadet Andrea Carlin. I'm from Roanoke, Texas. I'm a sociology major. And what I appreciated and just took most out of all of the minor classes I took with DISM was it's really special because of the other cadets that are in the classes from the variety of disciplines. I think that's what makes it the most special and really just enriches it. It's you guys. So yeah, that's why it's important to me.
My name is Koi Kizzy. I'm from McDonough, Georgia, and I'm an American history major. And I think this minor was important to me because it gave me the language in the critical theory, I guess, to describe issues that I already knew to be true of living in the world as a Black woman, and I really appreciate them.
Hello, I'm Kendall Woodard. I'm from Spokane, Washington. I'm an Arabic and Spanish major. And I really appreciated taking the minor because I had the opportunity to have the conversations that I knew I wasn't going to have in my major classes. And it was both interesting, and after I took multiple classes, I realized how useful it would also be, and not just something that I had fun with.
Hi, I'm Cadet Brian Brooks. I'm a military history major from Fairfax, Virginia. And this minor allowed me to have some really great discussions and get a lot of great new perspectives that I wouldn't have gotten in my other classes. So I'm very thankful that I chose it and glad that I did. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Cadet Danielle Ginsberg, and I'm a sociology major. This minor has taught me things that I couldn't learn in any of my other classes, and it also gave me the greatest of friends that I have to this day. So thank you to all the faculty and staff that made this minor possible to me, and thank you to my friends in class who have really, really good discussions and also a good time after classes.
Our agenda today includes a short Alpha Kappa Delta Honor Society induction, the history and the structure of the Diversity and Inclusion Studies minor, key leader remarks, cadet recognition with awards for excellence and distinction, highlight cadet capstones, and our guest speaker, Dr. Kimberly Underwood, followed by a Q&A session. We would like to begin with a poem by Dr. Maya Angelou titled On the Pulse of Morning, a poem that radiates inclusion. This poem was written specifically for the 1993 inauguration ceremony of President Clinton and is on the steps of the U.S. Capitol. Please adjust your volume to hear her powerful words. Just let it wash over you like a fast-moving river.
A rock, a river, a tree, hosts to species long since departed, marked the mastodon, the dinosaur, who left dry tokens of their sojourn here on our planet floor. Any broad alarm of their hastening doom is lost in the gloom of dust and ages. But today, the rock cries out to us, clearly, forcefully. Come, you may stand upon my back and face your distant destiny, but seek no haven in my shadow. I will give you no hiding place down here. You, created only a little lower than the angels, have crouched too long in the bruising darkness, have lain too long face down in ignorance, your mouths spilling words armed for slaughter. The rock cries out to us today, you may stand upon me, but do not hide your face. Across the wall of the world, a river sings a beautiful song. It says, come, rest here by my side. Each of you, a bordered country, delicate and strangely made, proud, yet thrusting perpetually under siege. Your armed struggles for profit have left collars of waste upon my shore, currents of debris upon my breast. Yet today, I call you to my riverside, if you will study war no more. Come, clad in peace, and I will sing the songs the Creator gave to me when I and the tree and the rock were one. Before cynicism was a bloody sear across your brow, and when you yet knew, you still knew nothing. The river sang and sings on. There is a true yearning to respond to the singing river and the wise rock. So say the Asian, the Hispanic, the Jew, the African, the Native American, the Sioux, the Catholic, the Muslim, the French, the Greek, the Irish, the rabbi, the priest, the sheik, the gay, the straight, the preacher, the privileged, the homeless, the teacher. They all hear the speaking of the tree. They hear the first and last of every tree speak to humankind today. Come to me, here beside the river. Plant yourself beside the river. Each of you, descendant of some passed on traveler, has been paid for. You who gave me my first name, you Pawnee, Apache, Seneca, you Cherokee Nation, who rested with me, then forced on bloody feet, left me to the employment of other seekers, desperate for gain, starving for gold. You, the Turk, the Arab, the Swede, the German, the Eskimo, the Scot, you, the Ashanti, the Yoruba, the Kru, bought, sold, stolen, arriving on a nightmare, praying for a dream. Here, root yourselves beside me. I am that tree planted by the river which will not be moved. I, the rock, I, the river, I, the tree, I am yours. Your passages have been paid. Lift up your faces. You have a piercing need for this bright morning dawning for you. History, despite its wrenching pain, cannot be unlived, but if faced with courage, need not be lived again. Lift up your eyes upon this day breaking for you. Give birth again to the dream. Women, children, men, take it into the palms of your hands. Mold it into the shape of your most private need. Sculpt it into the image of your most public self. Lift up your hearts. Each new hour holds new chances for new beginnings. Do not be wedded forever to fear, yoked eternally to brutishness. The horizon leans forward, offering you space to place new steps of change. Here, on the pulse of this fine day, you may have the courage to look up and out and upon me, the rock, the river, the tree, your country. No less to Midas than the mendicant, no less to you now than the mastodon then. Here, on the pulse of this new day, you may have the grace to look up and out and into your sister's eyes and into your brother's face, your country, and say simply, very simply, with hope, good morning.
Good morning. Such a powerful poem. This is Major Annie Apodaca, and next we would like to recognize the Alpha Kappa Delta induction of Emerson Bribiesca, who unfortunately is not able to join us, Brandy Braggs, and Melissa Gammons. They were unable to participate in our April 29th virtual induction ceremony. AKD, the International Sociological Honor Society, is a democratic and international society of scholars. To earn membership, undergraduate students must demonstrate a serious interest in sociology with an official program of the host institution, be at least a junior, be in the top 1/3 of their class, and maintain at least 3.0 in program-related courses. Established in 2000 with our first induction in 2001, our chapter is Alpha Phi of New York in the sociology program as part of the Department of Behavioral Sciences and Leadership at West Point. Congratulations to our scholars. First up speaking is going to be Brandy.
Hi, thank you all for being here today. It's a tremendous honor and a privilege to be a part of something so great, and I can't wait to see what everybody does next.
Thank you, Brandy. And now Melissa, please.
I'd just like to echo what my friend Brandy said. Very honored to be part of this program. Very excited to see where it leads. Thank you.
Thank you, and applause for both of our new inductees. Now I'd like to discuss the history and structure of the Diversity Inclusion Studies minor. The Diversity Inclusion Studies program emerged out of the Dean's Diversity Committee, a standing committee of the Faculty Council. In 2016, in direct response to cadet interest and demand, Professors Frey, McGowan, and Ender established a subcommittee to begin working on their minor. The rationale for the minor is, number one, ready future leaders for the Army's needs, fulfill a strong faculty interest, align with peer and aspirant institutions, fulfill a robust cadet interest, align with changing cadet demographics, advance interdisciplinary studies, and buttresses the superintendent's strategic goal of leveraging diversity and fostering inclusion. Officially established in 2018 with the support and assistance of Major Absalon, Colonels Spain, Sedgley, Hart, and Harper, the United States Military Academy Curriculum Committee, and Dr. Russ LaChance, the Diversity and Inclusion Studies has been fulfilling our initial goals. Today, the Diversity and Inclusion Studies minor is in the spring of its second year. It's a collaborative effort between sociology, history, and English faculty with the assistance from colleagues from these and other programs and departments here at USMA that have collaborated with courses supporting the minor. Our purpose fulfills and complements the West Point curriculum, allowing the Academy to respond to changing interests and demographics of cadets and the Army, and better help prepare cadets to lead in a diverse and varied world. It promotes better understanding of group identities and how they work to form and challenge social hierarchies and inequalities. It responds to the Superintendent, Lieutenant General Williams' prioritization of building diverse and effective winning teams. Because of the way the DISM is structured, it creates innovative and new forms of cross-departmental organization, fertilization, and cooperation. Our main goal with the minor is interdisciplinary breadth, exposure to a range of disciplines and perspectives, and providing opportunities and exposure to a broad range of cadets and faculty. Next, we will hear from Dr. Tony McGowan.
Hi, I'm going to speak just for a moment about the structure of the DISM. The minor requires cadets to choose 5 courses to fulfill the minor, 2 required courses from behavioral sciences and leadership, social sciences, and/or English and philosophy. These are social inequality, the politics of race, gender, and sex, power and difference. Additionally, 1 required course chosen from among 4 history courses. These are sex and civilization, race, ethnicity, nation, world religions, and last, society and culture in American history. And finally, I know it's a little complicated, 2 free electives from approximately 40 DISM designated courses from across the Academy: sociology, history, English, philosophy, psychology, geography, law, foreign languages, and social sciences. Cadets graduating have written a number of really interesting papers, course papers, capstones, etc. I'm going to just name a few of these. They're on the screen. A Mundane Deployment, Increasing Marital Satisfaction While Apart by Cadet Carlin. Network Vulnerabilities in the Age of Disinformation by Cadets Carlin Brown and Coletti. Sociological Examination of Transracial and Transnational Adoptions by Cadet Frizzell. Empathy as a Leadership Skill Set by Cadets Jackson, Nettles, and Yu. Inter-Service Cooperation in Special Ops from 1945 to 1992 by Cadet Brian Brooks. Arab Media and Regional Conflict by Cadet Woodard. And finally, the expansion of post-World War I literature, the contributions of 4 British writers by Cadet Gammons. And next we'll hear from Jake Absalon.
Thank you, Tony. Cadet Christopher C.J. Morgan, 22, was a member of the United States Military Academy class of 2020, a recruited athlete from New Jersey and a standout member of the Army wrestling team. CJ studied law and legal studies and joined the Diversity and Inclusion Studies minor. On June 6, 2019, a transport vehicle carrying CJ and other cadets to a summer training exercise overturned on a dirt road. CJ died in the accident. I had the opportunity to teach him on our military leadership course. In 2018, he shared why he signed up for the minor. I am very interested in taking on this minor. I really want to learn more about the awesome diversity of not just the Army, but America. And I feel like adding this minor would really help me. I am currently a law major and I love it, but I do not think simply knowing how to argue the specifics of a court case is going to help me become a successful officer or lawyer and to help others. I feel like this minor will help me better understand how to work successfully with others in the Army and world, and will help me become a successful officer capable of understanding others. With us today is Miss April Morgan and her family. Thank you so much for joining us.
I think they're muted.
April, can you hear us? All right, I'll get them in on a conference call here in just a second. Okay, we'll get them in on a conference call after a few more remarks. I just got a text. We'll figure it out. Thank you. A special thank you for the support of Colonel Spain, Yoshitani Harper, our Chief Diversity Officer, Mr. Terry Albritton, the Dean's Diversity Committee, chaired by Colonel Oxendine and Dr. Parsons, and the course directors of our 7 essential courses for the minor, along with members of the curriculum committee. It really did take a village to make this minor work. We will now hear from key leaders, 3 key leaders, about the role of the minor in the Department of History and Department of Behavioral Science and Leadership and throughout the academic program at the Academy. David is a full professor, Colonel Everett Spain is the head of BSNL, and Brigadier General Cindy Jebb is the Dean of the Academic Board. For their remarks, we will search for excellence and distinction in the program. David?
Thank you, Jake, Mac, my co-chairs, all of our distinguished visitors, and Dean Jebb, and I'm going to detour us a little bit and talk a little bit less about the minor and more to thank our first graduating class and to talk about why I think they're going to do all of us proud. We're very proud of you, and we know you're going to make the Army better. We know you're going to make the nation better, and we know that you will make the world better. And I know you know why this is true, but I'm going to talk to you a little bit and tell you why I think it's going to be true by focusing on some of our current events. You didn't know this when you signed up for the Diversity and Inclusion minor, nor did any of the rest of us, but we are in the age of a new fear. an age of exclusion. And COVID has produced far more than death and economic collapse. It has severely damaged some of the basic concepts that underlie the diversity and inclusion studies minor. It's produced fear that tears at the world's social fabric. This fear has produced attacks and discrimination against Asian Americans. Right-wing militias have shown up fully armed at liberty rallies with signs of rats and Jewish stars and caricatures of Jewish faces with captions that read, "The real plague." This fear also takes different forms. The disease is feared differently in our diverse communities, as Black and brown folks are far more likely to contract and die from COVID than others. COVID has produced related risks for women in abusive relationships, as it has made flight so difficult. COVID has laid bare the endemic racial and gender divisions in the US. In China, we see the government propagating narratives that the US Army has released this virus, while in the US, we see the opposite, blaming China for creating and then hiding the virus. We see virulent nationalism rearing its head across the globe. In the areas of the global South, we see countries that have inadequate healthcare already being overwhelmed, closing their borders, shutting down markets, and blaming the West, for its inability to contain COVID. Everywhere, scapegoating, racial, gender, and age discrimination, a backlash against science, exclusive nationalism, and isolationism are on the rise, all exacerbated by economic distress. This is the unstable world that you as graduates will face. You're going to be on the front lines as we experience the repercussions of this virus, but you now have the tools to better understand it. You understand the structural inequalities that underlie the uneven infection rates in the US and in the rest of the world. You understand the risks of discrimination and hate speech. You understand how cultures comprehend and interact with medical professionals differently. You understand the biases that might affect the elderly or the disabled. You understand how to do interdisciplinary studies to produce more effective and durable solutions, and the need to be humble, empathetic, and courageous as you seek those solutions. You understand the need to create inclusive teams to test and implement those solutions. And you have developed and honed all of these skills and more in your work as a diversity and inclusion studies minor. You will make a difference, and we desperately need more lieutenants like you. So congratulations, make us proud, and put all of what you've learned into practice. Thank you very much.
Hey, Colonel Spain, just a second. I have CJ's family on the phone. I'm going to bring them in. Hi, April. You should be good now.
Oh, good. Thank you. Sorry, we're not slow. We're very technology savvy, but we're not understanding what's going on with our mic today. But thank you guys for inviting us to the Diversity and Inclusion Studies minor recognition. We're slowly learning a lot about CJ, and I don't believe that we knew he had a minor. So this is amazing to think that he was even thinking about, his, what he wanted to focus on and learn more for when he eventually became a lawyer. So my husband and I are grateful to be a part of this and just honored that you guys invited us. So thank you, and congratulations to you guys.
Thank you so much. Colonel Spain?
Thank you, everyone. What a treat it is to be here. When I woke up this morning, I knew it was going to be a great day. How about you? It reminds me of about 3 years ago when Professors Fry, McGowan, and Morton Ender stopped by my office, and they had a big idea. And I love big ideas. And they said, "Why don't we do something that'll make West Point more inclusive?" And I said, "Let's do it. Let's do it." And we're really proud that this is hitting its first of many finish lines. But really, it's a commission to our graduates to continue to do good in the world, even more so than a finish line. It's the start of many of these, and we're deeply, deeply proud. Dr. Fry, Dr. McGowan, Dr. Ender, my compliments to you for helping our academy get better. And you gentlemen look great in suits as well. By the way, I think you're setting a new standard for the DISM, at least showing your pride in our new graduates, as am I. Also very proud of BSNL Major Jacob Absalon, who carried a lot of this minor on his shoulders the last few years through his leadership and example and his hard work. So thank you for being the administrator of this minor and housing it for us. Team in the Army diversity is so important. You know, we all have those similar and unique talents, and when our Army is charged with defending our nation and the free world from fascism and oppression, you all know we must capitalize on all of that talent, individually and collectively, to even have a chance to prevail. We need diversity to win. And all it takes is just being excluded just once to know why inclusion is so important. It takes being excluded just once to know why inclusion is so important. And it was BSNL's honor to be the founding department, to be the host for this major the past 3 years. And we look forward to remaining involved. And we need this inclusion because we are human and it is right. To our tremendous graduates, several of whom I know personally, on behalf of the faculty, staff, cadets, and alumni of the Department of Behavioral Science and Leadership, congratulations. Diversity and inclusion is one of our department's priorities, and we are very thankful for you. Go make us proud, don't let anything stop you, and continue to take care of others along the way. For me, well, I'll be back here at West Point, trying to do good from here. But I'm inspired by C.J. Morgan's quote, and I echo that quote of, I want to really learn more about the awesome diversity of not just the Army, but America. So I'm proud to be followed by someone who leads by example in embracing and leveraging diversity and inclusion, the 14th Dean of the Academic Board, Brigadier General Cindy Jebb.
Well, thank you so much, Colonel Spain. Thank you all. I'm so honored to be part of this special inaugural event. Mr. and Mrs. Morgan, you grace us with your presence, and as you see, your son continues to inspire. Dr. Underwood, thanks so much for being here. I look forward to your words. We know that diverse teams are powerful, but that is only if diversity is identified and valued. This graduation demonstrates that our academic program and our academy not only value diversity, but are making tangible steps to further contributions in this critical area. West Point was just awarded its institutional membership to the National Center for Faculty Development and Diversity, and we just named our first Dean's Fellow for Diversity and Inclusion, Major Jess Dawson, and I know many of you know her very well. To me, this minor will pay huge dividends now and for the future. Education is so powerful. As Nelson Mandela reminds us, education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world. And you, our graduates, not only benefit from your education, and particularly this minor, but even more importantly, you should have confidence in your own agency to make a difference with Army values as your North Star. I would like to thank everyone for the work you've done to make this happen. A huge thanks to Major Jacob Absalon for shepherding this minor for the last 2 years. Your efforts are so appreciated, and you will be sorely missed. A special thanks to Drs. Fry, McGowan, and Ender for your pioneering work in making this happen. We would not be here today if it were not for you. And I also want to thank all the departments who've contributed to making this event a reality. Colonel Spain, your BSNL, history and English and philosophy in particular. And a special thank you again to Dr. Underwood for being our inaugural speaker for this event. And finally, a thank you to all our colleagues across the Academy who worked together to make this minor a possibility. I think I heard Jacob talk about it takes a village. Most importantly, I want to thank the 9 cadets sitting here today, ready to graduate with this minor. I know it's been a lot of work, and it takes a lot of courage to tackle electives that might be outside your comfort zone. But I want to thank you for your willingness to be the first in this minor, and a special thanks for being willing to think about a subject that transcends academia and gets at the heart of understanding and valuing our humanity, collectively and individually. And as leaders, you realize this already. I understand that several of you contributed directly to helping us think about diversity as an academy, either by assisting with the Diversity and Inclusion Leadership Conference, and I saw Archie Elam has joined us, or by assessing this minor as your capstone project. I trust that you will continue to help the Army and our nation think about and improve upon our efforts to build diverse and inclusive teams. For that is what I really appreciate about this program. To lead in today's Army requires an understanding of our diverse soldiers and civilians. It requires a deep appreciation of what it means to be human. I love the phrase written by the playwright Terence, humani nihil alienum, meaning nothing of the human condition is alien to us. And I'm reminded by Maya Angelou, and loved the poem that opened up this event, when she explained that if you see an atrocity happen, you can never say, I can never do that, because a human did that. And it's really the first step of acknowledging one's own vulnerability that helps us develop empathy. And if we are to learn from one another, we need to communicate in a meaningful way. We need to be able to listen empathetically, not just actively. I'm confident that this minor has helped you all do that. Congratulations to our graduates. Remember, this is just the beginning. Graduation is sometimes called a commencement. So continue to learn, grow, and develop. Your education at the Academy, and in this minor in particular, will serve you well. Your character and your critical thinking will make you successful leaders in our wonderfully diverse Army in these challenging times. So thank you once again for this opportunity, and I'll turn it back over to Major Absalon. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Now we have the opportunity to recognize a few cadets for their outstanding contributions and success within the minor. First, we'll recognize Excellence in Diversity and Inclusion Studies minor. This award recognizes excellent performance with the highest AQPA in the minor. I do want to note that of her 40 courses, I've taught 5 of them. So there may be some great inflation in there, but she's a phenomenal student for what she does. Congratulations to Cadet Kelsey Frizzell. You out there?
Hey, Kelsey.
Yes, thank you so much, sir. I'm so honored and grateful to be a part of such an impactful program. I've been able to engage in so many important and critical discussions and experiences that I think have definitely changed the lives of a lot of cadets, people outside of this institution more than probably just myself. And that's such an honor to be a part of. And to all the staff and faculty that have had to mentor me and teach me over the last 4 years, you've definitely made a very impactful time on my cadet experience. So thank you so much.
Our second award, round of applause, thank you. Our second award recognizes distinction in the Diversity and Inclusion Studies minor. For the second award, we actually asked cadets and faculty to please identify a Diversity and Inclusion Studies minor cadet from the class of 20 they view worthy of distinction. That is a DISM cadet that best exemplifies an exceptional devotion to study, work, and craft of the minor. The cadet may have distinguished themselves and represented elements of diversity and inclusion among fellow DISM cadets, the Corps of Cadets, the larger community, and staff and faculty associated with the minor. They are distinct for sharing and growing, focusing, living, loving, and fueling diversity and inclusion on campus. It was a really tight race. A lot of cadets here have done a lot for the Academy. I do want to pause and recognize honorable mentions for Cadet Coy Kizzy and Lauren Fairfax for what they've done. For our recipient, I do want to highlight a few quotes from cadets and her classmates. She was an integral part of the post-SAGR survey response to sexual harassment and assault at West Point and recruited me and another DISM cadet to take part in more minor roles. She works to create an inclusive environment through her empathy and good listening skills. I only had one DISM class with her, Power and Difference, but I got the impression that she is highly motivated to learn about others' experiences. Another cadet shares she actually does all the readings and participates in class all the time. She brings intelligence to our conversations and is passionate about her classes. And finally, she exceeds all expectations and goes above and beyond in every class I've had with her. She is very intelligent and dedicates a lot of her free time to reading articles on theory and other sociological concepts that are not required. She brings a unique perspective to the minor and excels in all her classes. Our recipient is Cadet Carlin. Audrey, are you out there?
Thank you so much, sir. I just wanted to thank you, sir, for all the work you do for the DISMA minor. And then I just want to thank my classmates too. I didn't realize you guys said those things about me, so thank you. And I wanted to thank my professors too, and all of them for just teaching me, obviously, being there for me, supporting me throughout my time at the academy. And without you guys and without my classmates, the classes we take in diversity and inclusion, they wouldn't be as special or as powerful. It really takes a village. It takes all of these disciplines and all of these perspectives combining in a classroom environment to make this minor so special and to help us really encompass and grow as future officers. So I just really appreciate being a part of it, and wanted to thank you all.
Thank you. I'll be followed by Professor Morton Ender.
Hello, everyone. Man, this is really awesome. This is really awesome. All right, so I'm going to talk a little bit about the assessment of the minor. So like with any course at the academy, indeed any course at any major university, you have to do some kind of assessment of your program, of your course, and we have no less done that with the minors. The first time we've assessed it. So we thought we would turn that over to our cadets and let them have a voice in this process. So as part of the Armed Forces and Society capstone course, 3 cadets, Kelsey Frizzell, Danielle Ginsberg, and Lauren Fairfax, teamed up to conduct an assessment of the minor. They surveyed their fellow cadets in the minor to get their perspective, and they've got some data. So I'll let them jump in and share a couple of points about the minor. Any one of you want to jump in?
Yes, sir. We actually have a couple strengths and improvement recommendations in our process of evaluating the minor. All 3 of us have thoroughly enjoyed taking this minor, being that it combines so many different disciplines and opportunities to talk with our classmates and professors about such a sensitive subject that's going to be important to our field. So Danielle's going to start with a couple strengths, and then Kelsey is going to come in with the improvement recommendations.
Thank you, Lauren. You're the best. I love you. So I do have a couple of strengths from doing this capstone and just being in the program as well. Our first strength that we found from our capstone is that cadets in the minor feel that we're actually accomplishing goals that were set for the minor. And I think that's huge and it's excellent. It just shows that this is a really, really great program, and it's also very dedicated to its goals and achieving them. And the second strength is that this program enhances our education by learning about real-world application. And by doing this, we're able to understand the actions of the past and present, and we're able to predict and create solutions to problems that we foresee in the future. So those are the 2 big strengths we got out of this capstone project.
So for some possible improves for the minor, so overall, like Danielle said, cadets in the minor responded very well that the minor addresses a lot of different areas of diversity, and obviously diversity is a very broad topic, but we analyzed diversity from the lens of the unlucky 7. And of that, cadets think we do a really good job of covering topics of race, ethnicity, gender, sexual orientation, religion, and socioeconomic class. But the minor doesn't do a super good job of covering topics of age and or ability. And that's something that a lot of our peer institutions as well don't cover. It's not a very common course that's taught, so that's definitely an improve for the minor. That could also put our minor pretty far ahead of some of our peer institutions that offer similar programs. As well as some of our peer institutions offer programs that are engaged or experienced learning is what we called it. which is more so engaging in more hands-on research, volunteerism, or internship-related opportunities specifically related to diversity and inclusion. So a possible improve could be within any of the departments offering more IAD opportunities or more research-related opportunities specifically related to diversity and inclusion.
Okay, terrific, great. You three, thanks for making us better. I will now turn it over to Jacob Absalon, who will introduce our guest speaker.
Can everybody hear me? Sorry. All right. Dr. Kimberly Underwood is the Research Chair for Workplace Diversity and Inclusion Research with an extensive background in academia and government, including a combined 15 years of experience in diversity and inclusion education, research, and management within academia and government. Dr. Underwood has served as an Associate Dean of Academic Affairs and Policy, Assistant Dean of Student Affairs and Policy, and Chairperson of Doctoral Studies. Dr. Underwood earned a doctorate in education at the University of Illinois at Chicago, a Master's of Business Administration from Illinois Institute of Technology, and executive certification in strategic diversity and inclusion management from Georgetown University. She has more than 10 years of higher education experience and teaching experience and has earned the rank of associate professor. Dr. Underwood?
Good morning. So thank you so much. I mean, it is such an honor to sit here in front of you and have this privilege to speak to you. And so, you know, as we talk, I want to talk a little bit about the research around diversity and inclusion that I've done, but then I want to talk about you. And so as we move forward, you know, I am the University Research Chair for the Center for Workplace Diversity and Inclusion Research at University of Phoenix, as well as I am on faculty with Georgetown University within their higher education administration program. And I teach an amazing course on diversity and social justice in higher education. I'm also a consultant, and so I work with universities and companies around diversity and inclusion issues. And I have, and Jacob, I will say, I'm dating myself now. Now I'm at 2 decades of diversity and inclusion experience. And so, you know, thank you so much again for having me here. And I want to talk a little bit about the research. Next slide. The way that I met Major Absalom was actually at the International Leadership Association conference a few years ago, he and his colleagues, and I was introduced to West Point in this way. I was doing research around organizational diversity socialization and had come to this conference to present. And specifically, this project looked at, and I don't know if you all are very familiar with those Best for Diversity types of articles in magazines. And so this is where companies say, we're best for diversity. We have the greatest diversity ever, and they get these awards. Well, one day I was really nosy and I read to the very end of this article, and it said that these companies had self-nominated. And I said, well, wow, that's interesting. And so went and looked at a few more of these awards in these magazines, and all of them were self-nominated. And I put together a research project specifically looking at new employees in these institutions and these organizations to see what these employees thought about their companies as far as being best for diversity, how they learned about diversity. And I was able to actually coin this phrase, organizational diversity socialization, looking at how people learn about diversity and inclusion within organizations. And that's how I got introduced to West Point. I've also done some amazing research around police violence against people of color, and specifically the K through 12 impact on the classroom. How does this impact teachers? How does this impact students as we move and address these issues in society? And so when we talk about instances in Ferguson with, Eric Garner, I was there with when Tamir Rice got killed, when Freddie Gray got killed. I went into these cities and interviewed teachers to see how this very visible instance of police violence impacted them and their students. Right now, I'm in the process of looking at the diversification of K through 12 education, specifically around the diversification of the teaching population. As of now, there are only 2% Black male educators as teachers, and looking to see how we improve that number as well. I've done research recently on the leadership of multi-generational teams. I'm assuming that many of you are millennials, and millennials get such a bad rap in the workplace. As one person, I was sitting in a meeting one day, and someone said, "Those pesky millennials," and really looking at, as leaders, how do you manage millennials in the workplace? How do you lead these teams where we now have up to 4 different generations represented in any given workplace on any given day? How do you manage that? And finally, one of my studies, and this was very close to my heart because it was really impactful, was looking at transgender individuals as they transition in traditional workplaces. Specifically, traditional workplaces means those workplaces and those types of careers that are not readily associated with the LGBTQ community. And so really looking at these individuals and their experiences as they went through the transition process, the impact and their interactions with HR, their impact with leaders and managers. What were those experiences? What did they look like? And what are the recommendations around creating policies for people who want to transition within the workplace? And so the amazing thing about this is that I get to do something that I love on a day-to-day basis. There is nothing, and I think that, although don't tell my institution, they talk about, what would you do as a career if you didn't get paid? This would be it. I love diversity and inclusion. I love this type of work. And I love that you all have decided to take on a minor that allows you to look at this work as well. Next slide. And so I think about, and I know you all are looking at the slide and thinking I may give you a lesson on Maslow. And no, that's not going to be the case. I'm not going to do a psychology lesson today, but I think that as we think about this today and as we talk about diversity and inclusion, Maslow is important. And for me, I will start by saying that the military, and specifically the Army, has been very important in my life. And although I didn't enlist in the Army, I was what they call a military brat. And so my father did 20 plus years in the Army. And I was born at the end of his career, but yet and still, I was born at Fort Eustis, Virginia. We lived on base until he retired. And the Army played such a pivotal role in who I am today. In times where, and I'm dating myself again, in times where, people of color were really trying to advance in our society and make a way within this society. The Army took care of my physiological needs. When we talk about food, water, shelter, the Army allowed me to thrive in that way because it gave us what we needed as a family at that time. And then thinking about safety, my father was an MP on base. And so there was that sense of safety. I remember, looking at the soldiers doing drill around the base. And for some reason, that made me feel very safe and secure as I was growing up. When we talk about, love and belonging, there was no race as far as my father saw it in the military. Thinking about his friends and his colleagues, people of all colors. My godfather is a white male and one of my father's best friends from the military. There was that sense of belonging, that sense of connection, and that sense of family with my father and his colleagues. I also think about this in terms of esteem. And as I was putting this together, a story and a situation kept coming and bubbling up in my spirit, and I want to tell it now. I remember, and I was about 5 years old, and my father had gotten off of work and he needed to do grocery shopping. And so we went to the commissary on base, and for some reason that day, the commissary was closed. And so we ventured off base to go to a grocery store. And we went in the store, did our shopping, and as we came out, my father was putting groceries in the car, and he was in uniform. And I remember him being surrounded by 3 white males. And they started talking to my father and asking my father, why are you in this uniform? You're in this white man's uniform. And they started harassing my father, and I was terrified. But yet and still, I remember, there were people in that parking lot that day of all colors, all races, people who were military, people who were not. There was a veteran there who came and stood by my father until those men left. And I even remember somebody following us to the gates of the base to ensure that we got back safely. And I think about this situation, and I think about that connection within society. I think about esteem and how my father stood there, and he could have fought. He could have argued, but he stood there in strength. And he stood there with respect. And that's how I learned my own self-esteem from those things that my father learned from the Army. And then self-actualization. Who I am today a lot comes from my father. It comes from the military. Being able to really think about those influences puts this all in perspective for me as this diversity and inclusion person. And I will also add that one of the things I learned was how to make a bed. And I can still, to this day, bounce a quarter off of my bed on any given day. And so learning these things is important, but I want you, those of you with this diversity and inclusion minor, to think about this as well. And I want you to think about your impact as you move on within society. How does Maslow apply to you? I know a lot of you are going into military leadership and Army leadership. Think about how diversity and inclusion relates to these safety needs, for instance. As a citizen in this society, I rely on you to keep me safe, regardless of my diversity. As a citizen, I want to belong in the society, and you have the ability to take what you've learned in this minor and help create a sense of community, a sense of connection within society, within workplaces. It helps us as a country, develop our self-esteem and our esteem as we look at our strength, as we look at our freedom. How do you impact that with your diversity and inclusion minor? And as far as self-actualization, how does it keep us as a country in being the best country that we can be, that is inclusive for all? Next slide. And so I say to you today, you now have to think about your social responsibility. And what is social responsibility? First and foremost, in this work, we're now kindred souls. In taking this minor, it shows that you have an interest in diversity, equity, and inclusion, and you are willing to do the work. It requires us to be courageous in our conversations. A lot of times when we talk about diversity, equity, inclusion, and those injustices within these areas, we sometimes as society don't want to address them, don't want to talk about them, think that it's not PC. We have to be willing to have these conversations in order to advance past our history in this country, to advance to a better place in society. And with these conversations, there has to be action. When you see injustice, when you see an inequity that you can impact, do you make the conscious effort to actually do an action that allows you to address this and to impact the situation? Next slide, please. You have to think about, within social responsibility, this DEI lens, diversity, equity, and inclusion lens. Having this minor, you have now this keen ability to see things as they are, as well as those underlying diversity, equity, and inclusion issues that may arise. And that is one of the most important skills you will ever have. People say, to me, you're always talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion. Well, that's because diversity, equity, and inclusion impacts so many areas in our society. And I want you to think about, no matter what your major is, there is a diversity, equity, and inclusion aspect to your major. And so thinking about being able to look at situations as you go forward as leaders and make decisions, are you using this DEI lens? Social responsibility also requires that you work with emotional intelligence. And that means being very mindful of yourself, thinking about personal biases. I myself say that everyone has bias, and we have to be willing to admit that and willing to address that, but also being very empathetic to others. As we have conversations, as we do this work, are we doing it with a sense of empathy and a sense of respect for others, regardless of diversity and how we may feel about certain areas? And so social responsibility, I think for all of us, means a willingness to understand and do the work. And when I talk about the work, I'm saying that we're able to actually put all of this together and think about diversity, equity, and inclusion in what we do moving forward. And so I say to you, you call this a minor, but I say to you that your minor is major. Next slide. In doing this work, you're able to really think about those issues that impact society. If we think about this country, we have to be honest and understand that. And people say sometimes, it's always about race and gender, and it's always about socioeconomics. But this country was a country that was built on social stratification, systemic oppression, and race, gender, and socioeconomics will always be the focus of conversation, the root of the issues of this country until we are able to effectively address these issues. They intersect with other aspects of diversity. And I know that, earlier you were talking about, one of the students was talking about, what was lacking in the program as far as, abilities. But all of this intersects to really create the dynamics that we see today. And we have to talk about race, we have to talk about power, power dynamics, privilege. We have to be able to have these courageous conversations here in order to make some progress in this country. Next slide, please. We're in the middle of a pandemic, and wanting you all to think about how does diversity, equity, and inclusion impact our society within this pandemic. I know the speaker earlier discussed, the aspects of what's going on around healthcare, inequities in healthcare, access to healthcare. That's a big one. Next slide, please. But yet and still, there are other areas that we need to think about. Homelessness, how does that impact our country when we talk about a pandemic? How does race and gender and socioeconomics intersect with homelessness? And how do we address these? Next slide, please. Xenophobia. When we talk about ethnicity, when we talk about the treatment of certain groups within this country, with this diversity and inclusion minor, I'm sure you're able to see these issues and see them as important issues in our society as well. Next slide. Understanding this work through this concept of love is love, as we talk about sexual orientation, understanding that regardless of personal beliefs, everyone in this country has the right to love who they love. Next slide. When we talk about gender and gender equality, inequalities, there's still this pay gap here when it comes to both race and gender. Gender inequalities as far as who is in the boardroom, and not only who is in the boardroom, but who is being heard. My grandmother had this saying. She would say, just because you're at the table doesn't mean you get to eat. So being able to understand this is a skill that you now have, and something that I hope that you look at going forward. Next slide, please. And finally, as we talk about race as a major issue in this country, understanding the importance of citizens being able to exercise in their communities without being harassed and without being killed. I hope that you understand these issues as well, and you're able to really not only think about them, but have an impact in the future. I think about, where we are in my generation, and I have a lot of hope in future generations, and I put a lot of hope and stock in you all as leaders going forward to help impact some of these issues within our society. Next slide, please. And so finally, I say to you, congratulations, class of 2020. You will be diversity champions. You are those kindred spirits that I talk about, and you will move forward to do this work. And I am confident that you will do it with social responsibility. And so as I close, I bring forward a quote from Margaret Mead. Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it is that only thing that ever has. I thank you again for having me. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, I thank you so much, Dr. Underwood. We do have time for a couple questions. I did want to start with Cadet Koi Kizzy. She asked, in your research, did you find that diversifying the police force or really diversifying any organization led to either fewer incidents of police brutality or diversifying a workforce? Did you see any improvement in that organization based on kind of the demographics of those in power?
That is a great question. And I will say that that is an upcoming research project. And so as I looked at police brutality, I looked at specifically the impact on teachers and students. And within that study, the one thing that I found was that teachers were struggling, specifically to provide that understanding to students about what was going on within their communities. If we think about, for instance, Ferguson, when I was in Ferguson, there were riots going on, there were protests going on, students were pulled out of school for a moment. And then when they came back in, you know, we think a lot about parents, and parents had explained this to them, but they were having their own conversations and developing their own meanings with conversations with peers in the classroom as well. And so there was a lot of, I know teachers talked about a lot of disruption around what was going on. And so teachers were needing to guide those conversations, but then also looking at the impact on teachers themselves. And it was interesting because teachers talked about, you know, the stress of it all, the stress of, you know, having those situations within their immediate communities. And so the teachers talked about a lot of disruptive behaviors and destructive behaviors that they were experiencing. I know some teachers talked about having counseling and needing counseling for themselves in order to be able to function within the classroom. And so these were the immediate findings. But then, you know, one of the things that I also thought about was that, you know, as we moved forward, it seemed like it got quiet for a minute within our society. And we weren't hearing about it. But then, you know, with this recent killing in Georgia, there is the need for continued research in this area and moving forward to look at that specifically.
Thank you. Cadets, additional questions?
Yes, sir. I had one more question.
Go ahead.
Kind of a pivot off of that. Ma'am, this is just kind of your opinion, but recently the NFL announced incentive for teams to hire coaches of color, and in exchange they would get like higher draft picks basically for their team to make them more competitive. Does that type of system actually help diversity, or does it kind of make like continue to make Black people more fungible in those environments where we're kind of used for our race or our identity as opposed to being recruited for our skills that we actually have and can contribute?
Good question. And actually, this is the first time that I am really thinking about this and hearing about this. You know, it makes me think about affirmative action. And when we talk about the history of affirmative action in this country, talking about, the quota system that was attached to affirmative action, and not just diversifying for the sake of diversifying, because we know that diversity is good and we know of the positive benefits of diversity within organizations. And so we understand that, but I think that, my thoughts around necessarily attaching, draft picks to diversity, I have pause there for sure. And I think that there's a better way to diversify coaches. But then also, I will say, and in all honesty, I'm with Kaepernick. And so as we talk about diversifying, coaches, we also have to talk about, supporting diversity in this country as well. We have to look at the NFL overall and the way that things were handled. But overall, I would say no.
Thank you, ma'am.
Once again, Dr. Underwood, thank you so much for your time and support. Brandy, you had a question?
Ma'am, sorry, I know everyone's like, one quick follow-up on that. So the proposed rule that Coy is talking about deals, sorry, there's noise in the background, deals with giving incentives for hiring diverse candidates, as opposed to the Rooney Rule, which makes it a requirement to interview diverse candidates. Do you see a difference in that, or do both actions give you pause? Thank you.
Thank you. And so, I will say that, yes, there is a difference. And I think that, hiring diverse candidates is definitely a good thing. When we talk about diversifying, coaches, diversifying, coaching staff, that is a great thing. And as we have seen, recently, even not just talking about race, but even gender, and having our first female, on coaching staff, that's an amazing thing. But I think that, the attaching of some type of incentive to it, and I get it, because ultimately in society, if we were in an ideal world, that coaching staff would be diversified anyway. But it doesn't always happen. For whatever reason, and I think about bias, I think about implicit bias, I think about decisions, but understanding the need. If we're talking about players who, when we think about diversity, very diversified group of players, we also would want to see that representation naturally within coaching personnel, within ownership, those higher levels of leadership within the NFL, we would want to see that naturally. So I get the incentive, and although I don't like necessarily the incentive, I think that we all, as these now diversity and inclusion folk, understand the incentive. And sometimes you have to put an incentive on something until it becomes ingrained in the DNA of the organization that diversity is important.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
You're welcome.
Once again, Dr. Underwood, thank you so much for your time today. Again, congratulations to our graduating cadets, and I will turn it over to Dr. Morton Ender for concluding remarks. Morton.
Yeah, thanks, Jacob. Wow, Dr. Underwood, that was awesome. Indeed, this whole event is pretty awesome. Really appreciate you joining us. I especially appreciate the link between research and the personal, sort of including your personal experience in there. And I especially appreciate the fact that you study children. I admire people that study people that can't really study themselves. So that's pretty awesome. Congratulations to all our first graduates in the minor. Congratulations to our newest AKD members. Congratulations to our inaugural awardees in the minor. Thanks to everyone for attending. We need to decide who is on our bench, who's next. The program, as you heard, is doing really well. There are a lot of folks out there that are interested in this topic. We need to get that next generation of shining stars to join us so we can do this again next year. So I challenge you all to go out and champion the program, to be, as Dr. Underwood says, be courageous about the program. Dr. Fry and Dr. McGowan and I have one last piece of business. I heard a number of metaphors, and I've struggled with metaphors as well, but I like this idea of carrying the load. And I know Jacob is an armor guy, but really Jacob has been with us since the genesis of this minor. Dr. Fry, McGowan, and I sort of the concept guys, but Jacob really put this program in his rucksack and carried it. So we'd like to thank Major Absalon for his unwavering commitment to the minor from the genesis of the minor over the last essentially 4 years. And we have a gift for him. It's a tough gift to give because it was supposed to be signed by everyone, but we can't get people together. I hope you all can see this. So over the coming days, weeks, months, and even years, in the case of some of you lieutenants, if you get by Major Absalon's office, go in and sign this poster for him. It is a photograph of doors into Thayer Hall when you come over the bridge. So again, thanks everyone. Safe travels. Everybody take care of yourself, and I'll stay on the line, and we'll all stay on the line if folks want to informally chat. Thank you.
Congratulations, everyone.
Congratulations.
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 Congratulations. Well done, all. Go Army.